When he came home early, everyone expected him to be furious, but the new black maid didn't freeze. She laughed, soaking his billionaire triplets with a garden hose while they screamed with joy. Unknown to her, he hadn't heard his sons laugh like that since their mother died. Grayson Cole's shoes clicked coldly across the marble floor of Coltech's private hangar. His custom-tailored suit clung to him like armor, every thread screaming power, wealth, precision. His assistant trailed behind, breathless, reading off a schedule packed with names, numbers, and meetings Grayson had no intention of attending. Reschedule the Tokyo call and cancel the dinner with Kaufman. But sir, that was... I said cancel it. His voice was calm, steel-edged. I'm going home. Home. He hadn't said that word out loud in weeks. As the black SUV curved into the long driveway of his glass-walled estate, Grayson stared out at the emerald lawn, manicured to perfection. Everything looked untouched, controlled, exactly the way he'd left it. And yet, something was wrong. He could hear laughter, not the polite, rehearsed giggle of a nanny, not the quiet murmur of a screen. This was wild, alive. His sons, his triplets, laughing, screaming with joy. Grayson's brow furrowed. He stepped out of the car and followed the sound around the side of the house. What he saw stopped him cold. 3 small boys, his boys, were soaked from head to toe, rolling on the lawn in hysterics. In front of them stood a woman in a black and white maid uniform, holding a green garden hose like a weapon of joy. She was young, mid-20s maybe. Her smile was wide, unbothered and completely unprofessional. And when she noticed him standing there, suit stiff, eyes burning, she didn't apologize. She aimed the hose at him, raised a brow, and whispered to the boys, "Think he's brave enough to take a hit?" The boys screamed in agreement. For a second, just one, Grayson saw his wife. Not her face, but the energy, that ease, that recklessness, the way she used to break all the rules when no one was watching. He turned and walked back inside without a word. Meanwhile, Naomi Brooks shut off the hose, her heart racing. She hadn't known he'd be home. No one told her the CEO was flying in today. She watched his figure disappear into the mansion, stiff as a wall of concrete. "I'm dead," she muttered, trying to calm the boys who were still soaked and smiling. Naomi hadn't meant to get attached. It was just a job. Cook, clean, stay quiet. That's what she'd told herself. But the boys, they were magic. Lonely, yes. Starved for affection. But smart and sweet. She couldn't help herself. Still, she knew this moment. The fun, the freedom, had just cost her everything. Grayson stood at the window of his study, the one that overlooked the lawn. The laughter had stopped. The garden hose was off. Order, at least on the surface, had been restored. But something inside him wasn't. He watched as Naomi, the new maid, wrapped the hose back up and ushered the boys toward the back door. They trotted behind her, dripping wet, giggling under their breath, whispering like they were in on a secret the world wasn't allowed to hear. He hadn't seen them like this in years, maybe ever. Downstairs, Naomi was drying off the triplets with old towels, hair matted, faces bright. She was trying to act calm, like her job didn't just hang in the balance. But she knew better. She'd grown up in homes like this, shiny on the outside, hollow inside. Rules, order, silence. She had no business spraying billionaire kids with a hose, laughing like they were hers. "Mr. Cole's home," whispered Elijah, the one with the dimple. "I know, baby," Naomi said softly, tucking his shirt collar into place. "Is he mad?" asked Dylan, looking up at her with those unsure eyes. She hesitated, then bent down to their level. "Sometimes grown-ups forget how to laugh," she said. "But that doesn't mean you did anything wrong." The words were for them, but also for herself. Grayson finally stepped out of the shadows. Naomi looked up. The boys froze. "Upstairs, now," he said to the children. They obeyed instantly, their joy vanishing like mist. Grayson didn't take his eyes off her until the last set of small feet had padded up the stairs. Then, Silence. Naomi wiped her hands on the towel, then folded it neatly on the counter. "I suppose I should pack my things," she asked, eyes steady, voice calm. Grayson tilted his head, studied her. "You've been here 2 weeks." 11 days, she corrected. "Today's the 12th. And this is how you run my house?" She said nothing. "I pay you to clean, to keep order, not to spray my children down like dogs in the front yard." "They're not dogs," she said quietly. The words weren't defiant, just real. "They're kids, and I don't think they've laughed like that in a long time." That hit him harder than he let on. Grayson's jaw tightened. His world didn't allow space for this kind of mess. But something in her voice, the unshaken steadiness of it, cracked a part of him he'd sealed shut. He didn't fire her. He didn't say anything at all. He just turned and walked away. If that silence said more than words ever could, if you felt the tension in your chest, the shift in the air, don't just watch, subscribe. These stories are built moment by moment, just like this one. Stick around. The storm's only just beginning. The next morning, Naomi arrived in the kitchen an hour early. She didn't sleep much. She'd packed her things the night before, convinced she'd be let go by breakfast. No one had spoken to her since the incident. Not the housekeeper, not the driver, certainly not Grayson Cole. She cracked 6 eggs into a skillet, set out bowls for the triplets, and waited. The boys came down first, quieter than usual. They sat at the breakfast table with the kind of stillness only children trying to stay out of trouble understood. Naomi smiled at them anyway. They smiled back, soft, unsure. Then came the sound. Those same heavy, slow footsteps. Grayson. He entered the kitchen like a storm barely held back. His jawline was sharp from tension. His tie wasn't on, but the cufflinks gleamed. He didn't speak to Naomi, didn't look at her, just walked to the espresso machine like she wasn't there. She placed his cup on the counter silently. A silent offering. Peace, or at least neutrality. He didn't touch it. At lunch, she noticed the changes. There were now written schedules posted on the fridge, exact times for meals, screen time, naps, rules, cold, clear, controlling. It wasn't a conversation. It was a message. He wasn't going to fire her. He was going to freeze her out, control the chaos, re-establish the walls. Naomi didn't flinch, but she felt it. Every silent push, every ignored glance, every reminder that this was his world. She was just an employee. That night, after putting the boys to bed, Naomi walked past his office and saw the door open slightly. He was there, sitting in the dark, a glass of something expensive in his hand, untouched, the soft glow of a family photo on his desk, the only one with his late wife. She looked happy. So did he. Naomi should have kept walking, but she didn't. She stood in the doorway. "They miss her," she said. He didn't move. "So do I," he finally replied, voice low, rough. "But I'm not looking to replace her with noise." That word stung more than it should have. "Joy isn't noise," Naomi said, her voice cracking slightly before she caught it. "I hired structure, not sentiment." "You hired a human," she whispered, "and so did they." She left before he could respond. A thunderstorm rolled in on Friday afternoon, darkening the windows and drenching the estate. By nightfall, the triplets were wide-eyed and jumpy. Thunder shook the walls, and the lightning cracked loud enough to rattle picture frames. Naomi had just finished cleaning the kitchen when one of the boys appeared, barefoot, eyes big. "Elijah?" she asked, crouching down. "You okay?" He nodded. "Can we sleep downstairs with you tonight? We're scared." Her heart softened immediately. "Of course, baby." But before she could gather blankets, the twins appeared behind him too. "Movie night?" Dylan whispered. "We can bring pillows," added Zach. She hesitated. They were supposed to be in bed. The rules, the new rules, were clear. But then came another boom of thunder, and 3 little faces flinched in perfect sync. She caved. The living room turned into a blanket fort. Naomi made popcorn, set up a classic Disney movie, and even lit the fireplace to soften the storm's growl. The boys curled into her like she was warmth itself. That's when Grayson walked in. He was barefoot for once, tie gone, sleeves rolled up, holding his phone like he'd just ended a call, and hadn't expected to find a scene from his childhood waiting in his own living room. "What's this?" he asked quietly. "Storm duty," Naomi replied without flinching. They were scared. "They're in violation of bedtime protocol," he said flatly. "Guess I'll take the fall then," she said, smiling softly. He stood there longer than he needed to. Then, to Naomi's surprise, he sat down, on the floor, next to them. The boys lit up. "Daddy's watching with us," Elijah whispered. "Just for a bit," Grayson mumbled, loosening his collar. The room softened. For the first time they were a unit, imperfect, unscripted, real. Halfway through the movie, Dylan crawled into Grayson's lap. Grayson hesitated, then wrapped his arms around the small, trembling body. He looked across the room at Naomi. Something unspoken passed between them, a truce, maybe just for tonight. After the boys fell asleep in the blanket nest, Naomi gently covered them with throws. Grayson helped, silently, carefully, like it was sacred. He watched her as she brushed a crumb from Elijah's mouth. "You're good with them," he said. She looked up. "They make it easy." He paused. "You remind me of her sometimes. My wife." Naomi blinked. That was the first time he'd said it. Her. "You don't have to do that," she replied gently. "Do what?" "Explain your grief every time you feel something." He stared at her, stunned. Then he nodded. Just once. "At this point, what do you think he should do? Shut down and keep control, or finally follow what's left of his heart? Drop your guess in the comments." It started with a drawing. Naomi was tidying up the boys' playroom when she found it. A stick-figure sketch of a woman with curly hair and 3 small boys, all holding hands in front of a house. The name under the woman read, Nomi. She stared at it longer than she should have. Grayson walked in without knocking. He paused at the sight of the picture in her hands. "They draw a lot," he said. "They don't just draw," Naomi replied. "They process." Grayson's eyes flicked to the paper, then back to her, his face unreadable. Later that night, Naomi stepped outside for air. The storm had passed, but the air still held that sweet, wet smell of renewal. She leaned against the railing of the deck, looking up at the stars. Grayson joined her without a word. Silence stretched between them. Then he spoke. "She died 2 years ago. My wife, Amelia." Naomi turned slightly. She didn't push, just listened. She was spontaneous, wild, the kind of person who'd dance barefoot in the rain or paint the kids' faces just to make them laugh. And I was always the opposite, measured, safe. "She sounds like light," Naomi whispered. "She was," Grayson said, voice low. "And when I lost her, I shut it all down. I thought if I just kept moving, working, earning, controlling, it wouldn't hurt so much. But it did. Still does." Naomi looked away. Her own memories clawed at her chest. "My mum was a housekeeper," she said quietly. "In a place like this, big home, big rules, but no warmth. They had a daughter. I was never allowed to play with her. I remember scrubbing floors while they laughed in the next room." She paused. "I swore I'd never work in a house like that again. But life has its own plans, doesn't it?" Grayson looked at her, truly looked. "You're not your mother," he said. "And you're not a machine," she replied. They stood there, wounded in different ways, but bound by something slowly forming between them. The quiet knowledge that healing doesn't come from walls. It comes from being seen. Saturday morning smelled like pancakes, real ones, not the reheated kind. Naomi was in the kitchen, wearing an oversized apron and humming softly to herself. The boys were helping, well, mostly just spilling flour and licking batter. Grayson stood in the doorway, unnoticed at first. She looked different when she laughed. She wasn't wearing makeup, her hair tied back in a messy bun. But the way she leaned down to listen to the boys, the way she let them mess up and try again, it was magnetic. "You cook too?" he said, stepping into the light. Naomi turned. "Only when bribed with coffee," he smirked. "Noted." Later that day they all went outside. No hoses, just sunshine. Zach brought out a frisbee. Naomi tossed it. The boys cheered. Grayson sat on the edge of the patio, watching. Then Naomi turned and threw it straight at him. "Catch." He did. Not well. It bounced off his chest. The triplets erupted into laughter. "So much for CEO reflexes," Naomi teased. "Some of us haven't had recess in 30 years, he replied. But he threw it back. A little better this time. They played for nearly an hour. No assistants, no calls, no shoes. Grayson collapsed on the grass next to Naomi, breathing hard, smiling, actually smiling. "You're not what I expected," he said quietly. "I get that a lot." "No, I mean it. You've changed the temperature of this house." Naomi looked at him. "And how's that working for you?" He paused, then shrugged. "Confusing. A little terrifying. But, lighter." The word settled between them like a secret finally spoken aloud. As the sun dipped lower, Naomi sat on the porch swing with Elijah in her lap. She stroked his hair while he dozed. Grayson watched from the steps. "You're good for them," he said. "And they're good for me," she replied. "They remind me that joy doesn't ask permission. It just shows up and dares you to feel it." Grayson looked down. "That's what I lost, isn't it? Permission to feel." Naomi didn't say anything. She just reached out, lightly, carefully, and touched his hand. He didn't pull away. If this moment made you pause, if something about it whispered, this is what healing looks like. Don't just feel it. Subscribe. These stories are made to remind us what really matters, before we forget again. It began with a phone call. Grayson was in his office reviewing a proposal when his assistant patched through a client, someone high profile, a potential investor. "And you're telling me your kids are being cared for by a maid you found on Craigslist?" The man chuckled through the speaker. Grayson's jaw tightened. The call continued. A few more comments. Casual, icy, class-coded. But it got under his skin. That evening, Naomi walked into the foyer, freshly changed, hair pulled into a neat ponytail. The boys were upstairs napping after a full afternoon of play. Grayson stood waiting, stiff. "We need to talk." Naomi paused. "What's wrong?" "I looked into your application file," he said, voice cold. She tilted her head slightly. "And?" "You lied." Naomi's heart stuttered. "Excuse me. You said you had prior experience in childcare, but there were no references, no past employers." "I had to leave some blanks," she said. "People don't exactly line up to hire someone who's been arrested," he snapped. Silence. Naomi's eyes widened, then narrowed. "You dug into my record." "I have every right to know who's around my sons." She crossed her arms, wounded, exposed. "I made one mistake. I was 19. I took the fall for someone else because I thought it meant something." He said nothing. Naomi's voice cracked. "That was the worst year of my life, and you're using it to wipe away everything I've done since?" "You lied, Naomi, that's a problem." "No, Grayson," she said, stepping forward, voice trembling. "You're just looking for a reason not to feel. Again. And I was convenient." He didn't deny it, didn't defend himself, and that hurt more than words. "I thought we were past this," she whispered. "I thought maybe." "You thought wrong," he said flatly. Naomi blinked, her eyes bright with unshed tears. Then she stepped back. "You're not scared of me. You're scared of your kids loving someone who isn't their mother." Grayson's expression didn't change, but she saw it, the flinch, and it was enough. She walked past him, straight to the guest room. By morning, she was gone. Grayson didn't sleep the night she left. The house felt colder, bigger, like it had swallowed its own warmth. He went through the motions, breakfast with the boys, conference calls, security reports, but nothing landed. The laughter was gone. The boys were quiet again, like something had been scooped out of them. That night, he stood at the kitchen sink, rinsing a coffee cup he hadn't even drunk from. Then he saw it, The drawing, still pinned to the fridge. Stick figures. 3 boys, 1 woman in the middle. Nomi. He pulled it down, stared at it for a long time, and broke. Naomi, meanwhile, was sitting on the edge of a twin mattress in a tiny shared apartment across town, a borrowed suitcase at her feet. Her job agency had called earlier, another offer, this time from a condo in Manhattan. High pay, cold family. She hadn't said yes. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She let it ring out. Then another buzz. Voicemail. She hesitated, then played it. Grayson's voice, quiet, stripped of control. I failed them. Again. I thought protecting them meant erasing everything that didn't fit. But you fit. You brought them back to life. You brought me back to life. I was just too scared to admit it. Silence. I don't know if you'll ever forgive me, but I had to try. Because they miss you, and so do I. The voicemail ended. She stared at the phone. Her fingers hovered, then dropped it. She wasn't ready to answer. Not yet. The next morning, Grayson stood in the playroom, watching his boys draw on the floor. Dylan looked up. When's Nomi coming back? Grayson crouched beside him, heart pounding. I don't know, buddy. Zach frowned. But I didn't say bye. Grayson pulled them all close, held them tighter than he ever had. I messed up, he whispered into their hair. I messed up real bad. That night, Naomi walked 3 blocks to a diner. Her agency had left 3 voicemails. She ignored them. She took a seat by the window. Ordered nothing, just sat. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out a crayon drawing she'd stolen before leaving. It was the same scene, but this one had something extra. A stick figure man, tall, standing just behind the others. Daddy? She smiled, bit her lip, and opened her phone. 3 days passed. Grayson didn't call again, not because he didn't want to, but because something inside him had finally shifted. For the first time he realized love couldn't be controlled, couldn't be forced, couldn't be bought, scheduled, or fixed. It had to be chosen, freely. Saturday morning arrived bright and warm. The boys were in the yard, quiet. A hose coiled unused on the grass. Grayson stood in the kitchen, sipping coffee he didn't really want, watching them through the glass. They missed her. So did he. The knock came at 9:04 a.m., soft, hesitant. He opened the door. There she was. Naomi. In jeans, a simple t-shirt, and eyes that didn't quite know what to expect. She didn't speak at first, just stood there. He stepped aside. You don't have to stay, but if you want to come in. She entered. The boys hadn't seen her yet. I'm not here because of guilt, she said quietly. Or for the job. I'm here because I missed them. And... She looked up, holding his eyes. I missed what this house felt like when it wasn't frozen. Grayson swallowed. I don't know how to do this perfectly. Neither do I, she replied, but maybe perfect isn't the goal. He nodded slowly. Then, from the yard, Nomi. The triplets had seen her. They exploded through the back door like a rocket of limbs and joy, wrapping around her, screaming, laughing, not even pretending to be calm. She fell to her knees, overwhelmed. Grayson watched, tears pressing into the corners of his eyes. That sound again. Laughter. Real. Loud. Wild. And this time, he let it in. He walked into the yard, picked up the green garden hose. The boys froze. Naomi smiled, recognizing the look in his eye. He grinned, a little crooked, a little scared. Then turned the water on. Laughter exploded across the lawn. Naomi ducked behind a tree. The boys ran in circles, and Grayson chased them like a man who finally remembered how to be alive. Later that night, when the kids were tucked in and the stars were out again, Naomi sat on the porch swing, hair damp, sweatshirt borrowed from the laundry room. Grayson joined her. Do you want to be here? He asked quietly. She looked at him. I already am. He reached out this time. Took her hand. Not because he needed to control something, but because he was finally ready to share it. Do you believe true love can come from the most unexpected places, even across grief, pride, and class lines? If this story moved you, even for a moment, subscribe. These aren't just stories, they're reminders that second chances are real. And maybe, just maybe, they're waiting for you too.